thank you to the temple. Many of you know that we worship here on Sunday mornings, so it feels like being at home, and it's wonderful to have all the congregations together. Now, will you pray with me? Holy God, God of our fathers and mothers, we know that you have blessed us with every good thing. We offer you our gratitude and our lives. Amen. Let's face it, Thanksgiving is a bit of a hard sell these days and easy to miss if you're not looking closely. It's sandwiched in between the money makers of Halloween on one end and Hanukkah and Christmas on the other end, and it's mostly relegated to the bottom two shelves right under the witches' hats and goblins' ghosts. Walking past the ceramic turkeys doing their best to snag some attention, I find myself wondering, surely there is more. Now, living in snow and ice country like so many of you did for years and years, I well remember that the greeting Happy Thanksgiving had a bittersweet ring to it to almost everyone except the downhill skiers. For in snow country, Thanksgiving really meant the end of any hope that we would have a day warm enough that you could get by without a coat. And the beautiful leaves have made their way for snow, and in some years like this one, long before Thanksgiving. And that lovely white snow that we talk about, for many of us, is mostly remembered by the back-breaking work of shoveling it. So, I'm just saying, it's a holiday fraught with the tension of family and worldly claims upon our time, and we must choose to seek again the real meaning of Thanksgiving. So I wonder, surely there's more. Thanks be to God, there is more. And it is the more that calls us at this time here tonight, in this beautiful place with warm and loving friends and neighbors who come together to celebrate the more. So I say, Happy Thanksgiving. Welcome to that delightful time of the year when the winter holidays are almost upon us, but not quite. The air is cooling, and when we take the time, we may find ourselves in a particularly reflective moment. Just the right time to celebrate the goodness of God. Welcome to an attitude of gratitude that looks both behind and ahead. Welcome to a time when we can meditate on all that God has given and all that we have yet to give. We are, all of us, in the greater scheme of things, relatively new congregations. We are still figuring out just what our communities will bring to this larger community. For all of us, it is a great time to stop and say thank you to the God who called us, all in different yet similar ways, to be in this place, at this time, being about the work of our Creator God. The passage I have chosen for reflection tonight comes from Deuteronomy chapter 8. Now, I know that the Hebrew scholars among us could take a considerably more thorough look at this passage, and so to them I apologize ahead of time. This passage speaks volumes to all of us who sincerely seek to remember our God at this specific time and in the lives of our congregations. The writer of Deuteronomy begins like this, and I am completely paraphrasing. The most important thing you can do is keep the commandments of God, the God who claims you for his own. Travel the paths that your God chooses for you and walk those paths with a reverent heart. God is bringing you to a good and beautiful place. The harvest is plentiful there. You'll never go hungry. The splendor of this place cannot even be described. It is that wonderful, full of endless resources and food for us all. breathtaking, beautiful passage, we are promised all things, both physical and spiritual, a wondrous land where we will never want for anything. God, though knowing our difficulty to understand and follow through at times, has a few simple requirements that we are called to observe. After you finish eating and are fully satisfied, bless the God who has given you all that you enjoy. In other words, say thank you. You'd think that that would be a simple request, wouldn't you? But we need help, all of us, to explore and receive the depth of this attitude of gratitude. So our writer continues, make sure you don't forget this generous God by failing to keep the commandments given to you. And make sure that when you sit in your lovely houses and survey all that you have, watching life become better and better, make sure that you don't get the idea that you did all this by yourself. If you pat your back on yourself too many times, it will become a habit, and you will lose sight of what God has done for you. That God has both formed this beautiful land and called us to live in it. There are many things for these wanderers to remember about God's miraculous doings, things like deliverance from slavery in Egypt, divine leadership in the wilderness, water, manna, sustenance at every turn. We know that they suffered many hard times, times that our writer says, believe it or not, should be accepted as gifts. What kind of gift is that? Doesn't seem quite fair that we are called to be grateful for these times too. But God used those difficult times to prepare the wanderers for the promised land. And I wonder if we can see the parallel for today. As relatively young congregations, we experience both good and hard times. And in all those times, God graces us with ways to shape our growth and refine our constant gratitude. And so, like those in the desert, we are called to celebrate both, the good with the hard, the lean with the plenty. And in one final warning, lest we fail to grasp its significance the first time, we are reminded. If you start thinking to yourselves, I did all this, it's mine, 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 think again. Remember that God, your God, gave you all the strength to produce this wealth so as to confirm the covenant that He promised to your ancestors as it is today. So today we celebrate again God's outpouring of goodness in accordance with the covenant God made with His people. Funny thing about a covenant, it requires two sides. As beneficiaries of God's covenant with us, we are called to think upon